All right, ladies and gentlemen, the next video is going to be on matter cycling. So let's get started on this next video. So matter cycling is when we talk about biogeochemical cycles. So we have biological processes, geological processes, chemical processes, and then also human activity. So biological processes are going to be things like breathing. That's going to go through and cycle matter. Geologic processes, well, these are going to be volcanic eruptions. And then chemical processes, well, this is going to be something like precipitation. So human activity like burning fossil fuels can also have an effect on this matter cycling. So let's go into this in a little more detail. All right, so if we look at the water cycle, well, the water cycle is going to have a few different things here. So if we're looking at this, the atmosphere is going to go through, and we're going to have a separate video that we watch on the water cycle, but it's going to go through, and rain can precipitate, it can sublimate, we can have water go into the atmosphere, out of the atmosphere, and then it can infiltrate the ground, go into the oceans, and this cycle continues. So evapotranspiration, evaporation, condensation, all of these things have an effect on the water cycle. Now, we can also talk about this when we're talking about carbon dioxide. So when we talk about the carbon cycle, well, the carbon cycle is going to depend upon plants, animals, and then potentially human emissions. But photosynthesis is going to drive this carbon cycle. Some of the carbon cycle is going to be in the soil, and some of it can be fossilized, and that's where we get fossil fuels from. But as the trees go through and they take in carbon dioxide, they're going to respire oxygen that we are going to breathe in, and then we respire out that carbon dioxide. And the same thing is occurring in the ocean. There are going to be photosynthetic algae and dinoflagellates that are going to go through, and they're going to take in carbon dioxide. The ocean's going to take in some of this carbon, and the cycle is going to continue there. So when we discuss this, this is going to occur both in the ocean and on the land. So carbon cycling is important, and again, there will be another video on detail in this. Now, nitrogen cycling is also really important for life, and plants are going to need nitrogen. Specifically, they're going to need nitrogen for their DNA. Same thing with humans. They can't get it from the atmosphere, though, that exists as N2 gas. So what they're going to use is nitrogen-fixing bacteria that is going to convert it into ammonium, nitrates, and nitrites that then the plants can go through and absorb via their roots. And we can see we have denitrifying bacteria and then nitrogen-fixing bacteria that allow for this cycle to continue. So as we take N2 gas from the atmosphere, nitrogen-fixing bacteria are going to go through. They're going to convert it into ammonium, nitrates, and nitrites here. So nitrites, nitrates. And the plants can uptake those through the roots. Decomposers are also going to contribute to this nitrification process. And then as the plants go through and take in that nitrogen, animals consume the plants and can use the nitrogen again for certain parts of the proteins and then certain parts of the DNA where nitrogen is necessary in the human body. So if we're comparing and contrasting energy, matter, and nutrients, well, energy is only going to occur via one path, and energy is not recycled. When we talk about matter and nutrients, well, matter and nutrients are cyclical, and they are also recycled, right? So energy is not necessarily recycled when we're going through and discussing this, but matter and nutrients are. So when we talk about limiting nutrients, well, some cycles happen faster than others. Cycles that are slow don't deliver nutrients back to the soil as fast, and these nutrients are called limiting nutrients because they limit the amount of primary productivity that is possible. The example here is nitrogen. We can add fertilizers that contain nitrogen, and that can go through and allow the plants to go through and grow faster. But without those fertilizers, the plants are only going to grow at a rate that the nitrogen-fixing bacteria can provide for them. When we talk about symbioses, we'll discuss the importance of these bacteria in legumes and other types of beans and soy plants. But limiting nutrients are going to affect the rate of growth, especially when we're talking about plants here. And these nitrogen-fixing bacteria and the quantity of nitrates and nitrites that the plants can go through and get from the bacteria limit their growth.